And let's see if there's any more questions, Jan.
Okay, yes, also from Sandy again, and she's asking, what trees do giraffes prefer to eat? Is there one, and are they any they won't eat?
Sandy, another question, interesting one as well about giraffe. Basically, just asking if there's a specific one that they really like, and if there are ones that they don't eat at all. Now, it's not, I wouldn't say there's one tree that they really like. They prefer variety of species. Pardon me. They do like acacias a lot, just because acacias have got really good leaves, it's good food, and in general you could say they also like thorny type trees. If you think of something like a buffalo thorn, most trees that have thorns on them have those thorns to slow animals down when they eat them, because the leaves are quite tasty. So acacias definitely at the top of their list, but they will also eat bits and pieces of other trees. They'll eat, a while back I saw a giraffe eating combretum, especially the leadwood, which is not that common for them to feed on, but they'll eat them at certain times of the year. They even eat things that could potentially be poisonous for themselves, or in that case very, very poisonous for humans, things like tambuti, but they'll eat small amounts of it. Maybe it does help a little bit with internal sort of parasites in the intestines or in the stomach. Various reasons for it, they will eat small amounts of it. And sure, I'm talking a lot. Normally I'm not used to talking like this much. What I was going to say about giraffe, the one thing that can happen, coming back to certain trees that they don't eat, if you have giraffes in too small an area, or if there's too much pressure on the food that they have available to them, let's say maybe under severe droughts and there's a massive population of giraffe in the area, and they browse a lot on certain trees, those trees could produce enough tannin to eventually cause tannin poisoning. So that's something that can happen because of them browsing certain trees a lot, but that is normally only under severe circumstances. Quite often maybe on smaller game reserves where the animals are kept in a certain area and there's too many browsers relative to the area, they can over browse, and in the way the trees then protect themselves. The trees literally arm themselves with tannin and eventually fight back against browsers. So that can happen. But in terms of favorites, I would say probably the acacias in general. In this area there's not lots of them, but they like sweet thorns. The areas where you get sweet thorn, they really eat a lot of that. And just whatever good food is around, whatever is green and lush at the time. Any more questions, Jan?
Peter, Valerie just asked that she heard that Graham and Emily are here, and if they could come out, and so we can see them and say hello to them as well.
I don't think they're here. No, Graham and Emily at the moment are in Johannesburg. We spoke earlier today, and they're also watching with us at the moment. And they're going to be out here next week again. They're coming down probably, if all goes well, on Tuesday. So they're not here at the moment. Otherwise, I would have insisted that they come and say hello. Maybe we'll do something like this next week. Not to put them on the spot. At the moment, they're going. So we'll see. Maybe Graham and Emily can say hello to you sometime next week. But they're not here at the moment. At camp at the moment, it's a lot of rain. It's getting thicker again. And it's James and his girlfriend Christy, myself, Jan, and Rexon is out for the evening. So it's a few years gone back as well. So that's it. Only a few of us here at the moment. That will get quite busy again within the next couple of weeks, staff-wise. Any questions? Should I say any questions?
It's from Aquila, and she's asking, do male lions know their cubs by smell or by memory from having mated with the lioness at a certain time that would indicate that they have fathered the cubs?
Just first of all, the question is from Aquila, if I have it right. Beautiful name. It can mean eagle in certain languages. Aquila, you're asking if lion males can recognize their cubs from smell. Now, I'm not going to tell you yes or no on that because I can't give you a definite answer. But what I can tell you is just from other bits of information that I know about lions and how their smell work, is that I don't think it's necessarily the case that they can recognize them from smell. It's more likely a case of those males know that if they've been with lionesses for a while, that should be their offspring. In other words, if a female goes into estrus at all, if a lioness even just has a hint of estrus happening, those males pick it up. As you know, they do phlegmon. We've often seen animals, most mammals do it. They smell the urine of the female, and with that, the Jacobson's organ, they can test and they say, okay, this female is almost in estrus, we mustn't leave her alone now. We're not going to let her go anywhere, we're not going to leave her out of our sight. And they literally will stick with her until she's in proper estrus, and then for that whole mating period, they will stay with her. If it's one male only, sometimes both males will mate with her in that period of time as well. But so from that, then they should just know that if they've been with the pride long enough, those offspring should be theirs. But in terms of the smell, why I don't think they smell them is when you bond different lions. Now again, I mentioned earlier, you can catch lions maybe to relocate to other reserves, or maybe to start new populations, or to get your genetic mixes right. You can do that, but what they do quite often is to bond those lions. You can put them together while they're drugged, and you can put their scents on each other so that they feel more familiar with each other, and they will bond. Now this is something that not that long ago people thought wasn't really that possible. They thought strange lions will always fight. One of the things that helps with that, again, it's not necessarily all been proven scientifically, but a very good friend of mine has done a lot of this work. It works, so that is a good proof. Is just for mixing the scent. You take, they've got a lot of glands around the whisker area, so all the way around the facial area, you rub that scent. You get a cloth and you rub their face, and you go and rub it on the other lion. Now you might have seen lions when they greet each other, they come walking up to each other and they rub their faces against each other, rub their bodies against each other, especially that whisker area. And that is just a way for that pride to bond themselves with scent. Apart from when they just play around with each other and groom each other, rubbing their faces like that is a very, very strong part of their scent bonding in the pride. So my point is, to get it back to the question that you were asking, Killer, is that if a male lion had an offspring a couple of months later, you would presume it's his, because it's part of his pride and they've been together for long enough. And that cub would very, very soon after birth obviously smell like the mother, and it would soon after, when it gets introduced back into the pride, smell like the other pride members as well. It'll smell like the other cubs, it'll smell like the male, because they will do this, the scent marking. But the first few weeks after birth, the males don't even see those cubs. So for them to know when it's not theirs, I would say is very, very unlikely. Now it's not impossible, I know it's happened before, where a female might be in estrus and maybe she's just a little bit away from the pride or whatever. There's been documentaries about it, it's been seen before as well, and she might sort of on the sly mate with another male. In that case, those cubs could be back in the pride as well, and those males might not know that it's theirs. So I hope that answers your question. Like I said, it's not a definite yes or no, but I'm pretty certain that smell plays a relatively small part in them knowing that it's their genetic offspring. The fact that they know it's theirs, obviously smell is important, because those cubs smell like other members in the pride. More questions, Jan?
Yes, Peter, a pretty funny one. It's also from Sandy, and she's asking, do you really think you were a baboon as a small child? One of the boards says you did.
Yeah, Sandy, sorry, this is something that I mentioned a while back when we were looking at baboons. First of all, very interesting animals, and I'm sure they're very interesting because a lot of us can see a lot of us in them, and maybe they can see some of them in us as well. But basically, I did actually think like that for a while. When I was a little boy, about 3 years old, 4 years old, so you're already talking quite a bit and discovering your natural world and digging things and eating sand and picking leaves and learning about the world like you tend to do. I was very lucky to live in a very, very small town, so small that it was almost like living in the bush. It was a very small place right on the edge of a dry riverbed in the sort of western deserts of Namibia, and you didn't see a lot of big wildlife. You saw kudu, you saw gemsbuck, steenbuck, springbuck, a lot of your desert antelopes, and in a little mountain area not too far from there called the Spitzkoppe, which is a very, very beautiful area. There's a lot of interesting things about those mountains as well in many different aspects, but you would see baboons there, so I did find them fascinating, and my dad did tell me that story with a little glint in his eye, which he still has even when he's talking to me now about a lot of things. And for a while I believed it. It wasn't a good story, I didn't feel bad about it. I guess just because my parents smiled when they told me the story, I was quite happy with it. And I did like climbing, and I liked tying things, and I liked exploring things. So for a while I thought it was not all that impossible. Obviously, after not that long, you realize that it's not that possible, and realize it was just a good story. It's something that I'll probably tell my kids one day as well, especially if they're little boys running around in the bush. So yes, and I did believe that for a while, but it didn't stick. I'm quite sure I'm not a baboon anymore, even though I do feel like it sometimes. James is grinning there as well. I don't know, maybe James, did you ever think you were a baboon? James says no. My father always said, your father might be a baboon, but not my father.